All right.
Oh, yeah.
All righty. Setting up Facebook Live. And then we can share from my page. It'll be fine. Okay, great. We are now live on Facebook. Hello, everyone. Hi. Oh, I'm so excited to be here tonight. We're going to give a few moments for people to get on, and we're going to share here a few. But hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 3 for Black Indians NC Conversation Circle. And I'm so excited to present to you our esteemed panel tonight. So we're going to wait for a few friends to join, and then we're going to get started. And let's see. Okay. All right. Let's see. A few more places to share. And wait for people to get on. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Great. Well, we are going to get started. I am again very excited to be here. My name is Kimberly Knight, and I am the founder and chair for the Black Indians NC Facebook page, Instagram, as well as our 2021 powwow. So tonight I'm joined by some wonderful panelists that are special guests of ours tonight that I'll introduce to you in just a few. And we are excited to be here with you live on Facebook, and it will be on YouTube for those that always ask me, will it be on YouTube? Yes, I have you covered. It will be on YouTube later tonight for you. So first, we're going to start with a moment of silence for missing and murdered Indigenous women. So at this time, may we have a moment of silence for them. All right, thank you. Tonight I am joined by some wonderful panelists that I'm excited to introduce you to. So let's get started. We're going to start with our young lady first. Miss Crystal Cavalier here is the former NC political director for the Tom Steyer 2020 presidential campaign. She is the president of the NCDP Native American Caucus, and she is a citizen of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation in Burlington, North Carolina. Crystal is currently working on her doctorate at the University of Dayton and her dissertation on social justice of missing and murdered Indigenous women and gas oil pipelines in frontline communities. She joins the team as a deputy coalition director for NC Indigenous Tribal Communities. So let's welcome Crystal. Yes, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
And
for having me.
she's a very busy lady, guys. So I'm very excited for her to be here. And next up, we have Jamie Oxendine, a Native American of the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina, author, educator, historian, and speaker. Mr. Oxendine is the executive director, tribal administrator for the Halawa Saponi Tribe of North Carolina. He is an editor at powwows.com and the author of Southeastern Woodland Designs. He has been an adjunct professor of Native American Studies at Bowling Green State University, Ohio State University, University of Toledo, Lourdes University, and worked as the Native American liaison and education consultant for Ohio University. Jamie has served on the Board of Trustees for the Ohio Humanities Council, Board of Trustees for the Falling Timbers Battlefield Preservation Commission, and governor appointee to the Ohio Historic Site Preservation Board. He has also sat on the Access Grants panel with the National Endowment for the Humanities. So let's welcome Jamie, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Most welcome.
Thank you. And we have Dr. Marvin Marty Richardson, is a citizen of the Halawasaponi Indian tribe and has been involved in Native issues in various capacities his entire life. He currently serves as a grantee technical assistant and communication specialist for Wapila. I hope I said that correctly.
Whoopla.
Wopala Consulting LLC. In his role, Dr. Richardson provides technical assistance for grantees under the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration Native Connections Grant. He formerly served as the project director for the Halawasa Pony Historic Legacy Project. Finally, Dr. Richardson is an adjunct professor in the American Indian Studies Department at UNC Pembroke, teaching American Indian history online. Dr. Richardson holds a BA in American Indian Studies from the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, a master's in anthropology from Indiana University, a master's in history from UNC Chapel Hill, and earned his PhD in history from UNC Chapel Hill. His book, tentatively entitled To Be Ourselves, Halawasa Ponies, Race, Sovereignty, and Recognition, explores how the Halawasa Pony people maintain a Native identity and sovereignty despite the tremendous influence of the South's Black-white binary and white supremacy. Dr. Richardson's other work centers on Halawasa Pony cultural revitalization, including the Tutulosa Pony language, which began with a need to make powwow song phrases for the Stony Creek Singers. I'm a Stony Creek fan. An internationally known singing group based in his hometown of Hollister, North Carolina. He has shared his vast knowledge of tribal language, customs, history, and singing with natives and non-natives alike at various workshops, presentations, festivals throughout North America. Welcome, Dr. Richardson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. And again, everyone, my name is Kimberly Knight. I am a licensed clinical social worker associate. I am an elder care social worker for Orange County. Very excited to be here. I received my master's degree in social work from North Carolina Central University. So go Eagles, to any Eagles watching tonight. And also my second undergraduate was from there as well in family consumer science. And my first undergrad was at East Carolina University. So any Pirates and Eagles on here, please say hello. So we are going to get started tonight. We have some great questions. We are talking about a topic a lot of you have messaged me about, emailed me about, even messaged me in Facebook Messenger and called me about, is tribal engagement and tribal enrollment. So I have this esteemed panel of great people to talk about that tonight. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us for that. So we are excited to be here. So we're going to start with the first question. And for my panelists, you don't have to answer this in any particular order. If you choose to answer this question or not, you are welcome to. So we're going to go into question one. In our last episode, we discussed genealogy. What ways do you personally suggest an individual can get involved in tribal engagement in their community? And this could be by way of service, community service, monetary donations, educational resources, sharing their gifts, or talents, etc. What ways would you say that would be?
I'll go first.
Okay, thanks, Crystal.
So I became a citizen of my tribe in 2008. I enrolled with the Okanichi Band of the Saponi Nation. But at that time, I was a military spouse, and so we lived in Kansas at that time. And what I would do was I would call in, and at that time the tribe had just moved out to out here where our home is out here in Pleasant Grove, and so there wasn't much internet connection out here, so it was hard to call in. But I would stay abreast of information. Like I would just send emails and just ask if there's anything I could do. That's one way I stayed involved. But also, when we would move around with the military, we would my ex-husband was a tanker. And so we would be stationed in places that just lacked culture. And so I would find the closest tribal community there and just go and see. First, I would see what events they would have that were open to the public. And then I would meet a couple of friends there, and then, I would get invited to some of their events, and I tried to stay engaged that way because I was missing my culture because it was just me and my kids. At the time, it was just me and my oldest daughter. But when we moved back home, I became involved in our tribal community. Like I was helping with the newsletter, volunteering. I did do a couple of beading classes. I taught a couple of beading classes. At the tribe, and then I started to do beading classes at my home because it was just a lot easier have because I had smaller kids.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I was able to give back to our community there. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome because it's showing where you're using your gifts and talents to be able to give back and do workshops and community engagement, doing the newsletter, doing those types of tasks. And a lot of times that's things that are very helpful and always need a helping hand. So, yeah, thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to comment on this question of ways you can be engaged in your tribal community, or for people that may be interested in learning different ways to do that? Any other comments?
I mean, what you mentioned, I would just say the different categories of what you mentioned. I mean, those are the ways that you can be involved in community. Um, you know, the tribes are always looking for donations. There's never enough resources to go around. And of course, volunteers are always important for tribes to have for different events and things like that. You know, in a lot of our communities, we have what's called the 80-20 rule, which means that, or 20-80 rule, that 20% of the people do 80% of the work, or or 100% of the work. And so that's always a challenge, always an issue in Native communities. You always have those certain families or individuals that are willing to volunteer, and so tribes are always looking for help with certain things, certain talents, and so that's very important in tribal communities.
Yeah, I think so too. Jamie, did you have anything to add to that one?
As Marty said, being a volunteer is exceptional, and especially for young people that need volunteer hours. When I was teaching in Ohio and the Great Lakes, there was always needed for that. There's a requirement for high schoolers to do a certain amount of volunteerism. If I'm not mistaken, at one point in time, they had to have 25 hours volunteer to get their diploma. And then just about every grad school, excuse me, undergrad, and even some grad schools required a little bit of volunteerism depending on what your field was. And so the students, a lot of them would wait till April or May to try to get in there at 25 hours. We always told them, hey, start as August and September. In the Great Lakes, I work with several tribes that had their own living history, woodland Indian villages. And we always needed someone to help build the longhouse, keep the longhouse up, cut the grass, a lot of things like that. Here at the Hiawassee, we can always use volunteers. For instance, we're working on a newsletter right now. Someone could come by and they can do folding of the 500 plus pieces of paper, take the stamps off and put them on, do the labeling, help the seniors, get some water for them. Volunteerism is a great way to help when you can't help monetarily. So as Marty said, that's a perfect way to help all Native tribes across North America.
I definitely agree. I'm one that's always been an advocate for volunteering, and actually for my master's degree and my undergraduate, they required you to do service hours for our degree. So I think it's really good if you're someone out there that's interested in how you can be involved in your tribal community and just don't know how, because sometimes people have written me and always think, well, I don't dance, well, I don't sing, I don't drum, I don't do bead work. What are other ways that I can be involved to still support my tribe? And I'm like, there's several things that you can do. It's probably just taking that first step and leap of faith of saying, hey, what can I help you with? What are things you're trying to accomplish? I charge all of the younger and the really seasoned, I call my seasoned seniors, that know social media. A lot of tribes are using social media now. If you're good at web design or social media, hey, that's something that can be a part of your volunteerism to help people. So you never know. It could be a creative idea you have. And when we are able to do powwows in person, that's another thing. People always need volunteers. So if you're living in tribal communities and just want to get active and you're trying to figure out how to support your tribe, that's definitely a way that you can do that. So, and it's a good way to get to know people more in the community too. You already live there. You probably know majority or related to majority of the people anyway, but it's a way for you to get your voice out even more, volunteering. So that's my comment on that. Yeah. Any more comments about that one before we move on to question 2? All right, we are rocking and rolling, y'all. What is the difference between state recognition and federal recognition? And this is coming from your personal backgrounds here, and how does that affect tribal communities? This could be in regards to your own tribe or just in general. Would anyone like to comment on that one?
Well, I'll speak up if no one else will. From what my knowledge, from what I see, the difference between state recognition and federal recognition has to do with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And that's the main difference. Is federal tribes are eligible for services and funds from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but also a host of other federal agencies that offer grants and funds and opportunities to those that are on the federally recognized tribes list.
Right.
Of course, another difference between state and federal tribes is for sure direct government to government relationship with the United States. For federal tribes, I would be one to argue that other tribes that do interact with the government, the federal government, do work with the federal government, with a government to government relationship. But again, the meaning or what's stated about tribes as far as being federally recognized, most people state the bar at receiving services and being recognized by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And the way that for the second part of that, the way that manifests itself in for tribes that aren't fully federally acknowledged is that those tribes are not eligible for a lot of different services that are sorely needed in our communities. And so with what I do in a professional manner and what I've been doing for, I'd say maybe 20 years or so, is as a grant writer, as someone that's been involved in tribal issues and tribal politics, I've come across many opportunities that are only available for fully federally recognized tribes. So that's what I see as the difference between state and federal tribes. Those are the main differences.
Good to know. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have comments on state or federal?
No.
I'll talk about the state a little bit.
Okay.
Marty did an exceptional job of covering the federal. State is up to each individual state assembly. And not all states have state recognized tribes. There's about 62 state recognized tribes across the United States. And a group will petition the General Assembly and they have to abide by whatever that General Assembly's rules are, which are all very, very different. For instance, here in North Carolina, that goes help with the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs. The tribe might seek their help to also petition to the General Assembly. And once it is passed, it's signed by the governor, and in that state, they're known as state recognized. However, it can cross state lines. Perfect example is I lived in Ohio for 20 plus years. While I was in Ohio, Ohio recognized me as being a member of a state recognized tribe, the Lumbee of North Carolina. So I was able to get benefits in Ohio that a state recognized tribal member could get. But since there's so few natives in the state of Ohio, there's less in Ohio than my entire tribal population. I was also able to get federal benefits as a single person living in the state of Ohio, because the Lumbee are the one tribe that sits in that void. We're recognized by the feds as being Indian. We just don't get certain benefits through the BIA. But by being an individual alone in Northwest Ohio, where I would say the population of Native Americans was less than 0.01%, the number of Lumbees was, I think, 2, me and a cousin that lived 2 hours away, I was able to get some state benefits in a state that doesn't have any recognized tribes, and also able to get some federal benefits that should only go to BIA tribes. So there's a strange loophole there, if you want to call it that. And it's very complicated to get state recognition. And as Marty said, it even go on into the parameters of federal recognition is long and hard, as he's been working on that most of his life with the Ottawas pony. But that gives you an idea of the state, and every state is different. So the state requirements, say in Alabama, to be state recognized would be completely different than in North Carolina. and vice versa, and on from state to state. Some states have both federally recognized tribes and state recognized tribes, and those state recognized tribes are now trying to get federal recognition at the same time.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for breaking it down that way, because it is a complex issue. A lot of people don't understand, what does this mean to be state recognized, federal recognized? Some people assume everyone gets the same benefits or rights and privileges of both recognitions. And it's like, no, there's separate things. And then based on your state, it also depends on the process of going about getting that. So I'm glad that you did speak on that, you and Dr. Richardson, because that's so important that people are knowledgeable in the community about what these things actually mean for your tribe. And that way you'll know when you're educating others about your tribe, this is what the processes are like, because there's so much legal and business aspects of tribal affiliations and membership that people don't recognize or understand. So which is why I posed that question, because I wanted it to be where, and I'm glad a lot of people wrote in about that question too, is because I felt like that was a good one to make people understand. Crystal, you have anything to add?
Oh, they covered it really good. Yeah, I just think the BIA needs a overhaul. That's what I personally think.
Yeah,
the BIA does. So, yeah.
There's always time for change. As I like to say, change is not a bad thing, people. It's a good thing. So yeah, awesome. Well, our other question is, what are the steps you should take to enroll with your respective tribe? And what are misconceptions people may have when seeking tribal enrollment? Now, this can be specific to your own tribe or in general, because I get asked this question quite frequently, of where there are people who grew up in communities that are considered tribal communities and are not necessarily enrolled. They may have family members enrolled, and now they're seeking interest as an adult to enroll. But I've gotten a lot of questions about people wondering, what is that process like? So that's why I posed that question. And again, it is, what are the steps you should think about taking if you're interested in enrolling to your respective tribe? And what are misconceptions people have about tribal enrollment? So anyone can take that one if they like.
I can
I'll
just
go first on that one. Oh,
Okay. Jump in.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
all right. I can speak as a Lumbee. The application, I downloaded it, and you can easily go to the Lumbee website. It's about 4 pages. The first page is instructions, and then 3 pages of the application to fill out. And it actually gives the policies for the Lumbee on enrollment and all the process. The first page, you'll see there's over about 10 steps of exactly what to do, and they're very specific, and they've got emphasis in bold print on what needs to be done. And the new rules, the tribes do have rules, and each tribe makes their own rules depending on the tribal council or what have you. So if you've got 574 federally recognized tribes, you've got 574 different ways of the rules of enrolling. And once that's taken place and they accept you, then for most tribes, you get an ID card, an enrollment number, chart number, various things like that. The Lumbee recently changed theirs last year. We used to have a test for years. Now we have a cultural class that is mandated that someone must attend. And then you have to take the certificate from that class and the application in person. They don't do anything by mail, to the enrollment office, and they go through the process of that. So that's how the Lumbee do it. And as I said, it is online, so someone who wants to see exactly what the instructions are can go to the Lumbee website, pull it down, read it, and gives you detail on exactly how the Lumbee does it. As far as what people expect, right now, lately with the CARES COVID Act that was passed, and people saw some huge numbers that were going to tribes, 8 billion going to both federally and state recognized tribes. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people, actually I should strike that, I don't think, we know a lot of people saw dollar signs and phones were ringing off the hook here. I called some friends around the country and they said phones are ringing off the hook there, and emails, because people thought, oh, I get a check or I get a Visa card or I get something like that. And they don't realize that that's not exactly what it is. It's also not a club. This is a true cultural entity of race of people. And there are specifics to that. So it's not a club that you join and then not do anything or join another club. But I'm sure that our two colleagues will let you know that this is not a money thing. And that is something that we try to let everybody know, that we pay taxes just like everybody else do. And the taxes may differ from tribe to tribe depending on the territory and state and place. But it is not a guaranteed, hey, guess what? It is not a cash cow to be enrolled. And that's when you lose a lot of people. The phone numbers will go down. Instead of having 1,000 calls a day, once you let them know, no, this is not a way to get money, you go down to maybe a few hundred calls a day. So that helps eliminate that process. And I'm sure my two colleagues esteemed will go into that if they wish. But that's how the Lumbee do their enrollment.
Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. And that's a great misconception. A lot of people do think that this is a automatic, if I go enroll into a tribe, that means I have benefits and rights to certain things and monies and all these things. Because I think that has been personally romanticized a lot in mass media, and misconceptions people have, and not knowing, because some people have not actually lived or visited the tribal communities they're trying to connect to, or the tribes they want to be enrolled in. And so a lot of times it's this misconception of, this is the things that I've been told through media that I'm supposed to receive, because someone that is in media may have received some benefits from one of the larger tribes or from a federally recognized tribe. So I think that's one of the things that is a definite misconception, is about the money. And in my personal opinion, if you're interested in enrolling anyone out there into a tribe, my hope is that you're going there with a pure heart and a mindset of connecting to your ancestry and for connection with your culture and your people, and not necessarily going to appropriate or going for considering money as monetary supplement for your purposes. So that's my personal opinion, not representing anyone, just my personal opinion, that that should be something you seek because of a personal journey. Anyone else want to comment on this good question here?
I'll go. So I talk about how I became enrolled, or how I got interested in my family genealogy. So my great grandmother, she was Lolly Jeffries, and her and my uncle JP, they enrolled in the tribe early. And it was something I had always wanted to do, but being underage, I had to do with what my grandparents and with my mom, and they were still pretty afraid, so they didn't enroll in the tribe. But when I got older, I started to research our family tree, and it wasn't until my grandma got really up in age that I was like, okay, I'm gonna just do that. And what I did was I had went ahead and for years, put our family tree down. And I just went to the website and printed out the enrollment form, and I read the directions, and I made sure I read it right. Like Jamie was saying, like, you have to go by, the rules of that tribe. And I filled out our form, and I just sent in my enrollment fee. And I waited, and then I got my letter. And then here in the last 4 years, I enrolled my two children. Well, I have 3 children, but I enrolled 2 of my children in the tribe. And I'm just waiting to enroll Samantha, my middle daughter. But I have been asked that by people in the community about the money aspect of it. And I'm just like, no, I was like, we're not a federal tribe. We don't get the, what is that thing you get per capita? Because people think you get that, or you get like money for school or whatever. And I'm just like, no, usually you have to apply for these scholarships, and then you have to get like a letter. I mean, it's a long process. It's nothing quick. And let's say, I'm trying to think what else are some misconceptions. People, just crazy stuff. People ask me, do I live on a reservation? And I'm like, no, I live on my family's property. We had it in our family for years. But those are just some misconceptions that people think. I guess they just automatically think you get money, and I just don't understand that. It's just horrible. But yeah, So yeah, that's my comments.
Yeah, I think it's because it's so much in media that tells you that. Like even, and I remember years ago there was like um, magazine articles that would come out basically showing people in regalia and saying that if you enroll in your tribe, you can have X amount of money and access to this or land and things like that. And so I think it's just media on so many accounts will give people misinformation, which is one of the reasons we wanted to do platforms like this to break those misconceptions about Native people, especially in North Carolina, because there's a lot of questions people have. And being that we're a southern state and one of the areas that was a lot of contact of Europeans coming into the country. So I think it's a lot of misconceptions about what Native life is like here for people. And so that's why I was like, it needs to be panels to talk about things like this. And I'm glad you brought that up about people thinking you live on a reservation. And it's no disrespect to anyone that lives in tribal communities or reservations, but not everyone connected to their tribe may not live there. Some people move away for school, for work, for family, different purposes and reasons. So sometimes people are, disconnected sometimes that way and come back home. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. Marty, you have anything to add to this one?
I think Jamie and Crystal covered it pretty well. I guess I really want to get across the point that tribes are sovereign nations, regardless of whether they're state or federal tribes. If you mentioned before when I was talking about the difference between federal and state tribes, I didn't really mention sovereignty because state and federal tribes are sovereign nations. And to me, the number one sovereign act is to determine membership or citizenship. And that's where the buck stops with sovereignty as far as I'm concerned. And but there are 600 or 700 different tribes all across the United States, and each tribe is different. Each tribe determines its own criteria and its own membership. Some tribes depend on genealogy, and genealogy is basically the only criteria that they have. Other tribes have a combination of genealogy and social ties to the community. And so, a lot of times when people want to enroll and they have genealogy, and sometimes they might not have social ties, and they're denied. They're not allowed in the tribe, and that's because tribes have their own membership. And some depend on genealogy, others have blood quantum, others have social ties, and some have a combination of all or both of those criteria. So yeah, that's what I would like to get across as far as enrollment. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. People do need to recognize these are sovereign nations. These are nations with their own identities, their own stipulations of what means for you to join and become a member. And social ties being one of those factors could be as well. Sense of community there. It could be genealogy. I know right now genealogy is everywhere. I don't know if y'all have seen the commercials, the Facebook posts, the pages. Everywhere you look, there's some company with a genealogy type of thing to research people. And now that I've had the pandemic happen, I feel like even personally myself, I too have been researching my family tree on my mother's father's side a lot more often than I would have in a non-pandemic world because I'm home more and I have more time. But I think that's why it's good to go in this series we've been talking about in this type of format where we talked about you're learning about, there may have been some names you learned from elders in your family or connections to community in your family. And then moving forward into genealogy and looking at how to properly do your genealogy. That is so important, everyone out there. Please be careful with the websites you choose to use. Please make sure that you speak to people in your family and friends and elders in your community about verifying dates, places, and names where people lived and had children and married or divorced or where they passed away or transitioned. Please be sure you look at all those things to be accurate because the internet is, I call it a gift and a curse. It can give you some good information or it can give you some bad information. So make sure that you are researching the right exact way to learn things. And so in tribal communities, I think that's so important for people to understand that when you think about getting engaged or enrolled, make sure that you are informed. Look at the websites first. Most tribes I've seen in North Carolina have their own website now. For the most part, I think I've seen just about all the state recognized and federal that have their own websites now. So it's a way for you to be able to learn more online and research before you go and contact an office. And I'm so glad that we are talking about this tonight because it's very, very important. So we got our questions out the way, which was good, which is great. And we're actually on time. Look at us. I have run over in other towns. We are actually on time. So now I want to give an opportunity for each of you, if you'd like to share about who you are and just a little bit about, I know I've read your bios, and for those just joining us now, you might just be coming in, but I wanted to give everyone an opportunity on the panel to share if they have any last thoughts they would like to share, and then to share a little bit about the things that you're doing in the community. Anyone can go first.
I'll just go and get it out the way. So let's see. So the important thing that I'm working on is the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women database. I established a nonprofit, and we have a board of directors, and the board of directors is made up of just about everybody, every tribe in the state. We are missing 2 tribes to have, accurate representation. But we meet monthly to discuss, cases that have been happening, like what are the recent cases, are there things that we need to be aware about in trends? Those are the couple of things. My latest job, the one that pays the bills, is I am the Tribal Engagement Coalition's Deputy Director for the Joe Biden campaign. And so I've been reaching out to just community members, encouraging them to vote, because that's real important to vote. I've been learning the history about Native Americans and when they got the right to vote, like 1924. But then I was also researching the history of the Haudenosaunee, and if they vote, how do they vote, or can they vote? Will that affect their sovereignty? And so I've been reaching out to a couple of elders up there in the Cayuga Nation and just having conversations about that. But every day I have some type of information session about voting, because right now with this pandemic going on, we want to try to keep people safe. And so the campaign has suspended all in-person meetings and events. So right now we're doing everything by Zoom or virtual. And so we're just getting information out about voting, how to absentee vote. And so I just want to make sure people in the community, especially our elders and youth, are aware of the ways they can vote. So you guys can reach out to me at crystal.cavalier@2020victory.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at Native by Chris, or on Instagram at Mashnukenop. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, awesome. Yes. And thank you, Crystal, for all that you do, because working for campaigns is a lot of work. And very consistent. And I thank you for, being such a great voice out there across Indian country, and getting the word out about voting, because there's too a lot of misconceptions about voting and what this election is going to look like when it comes to mailing in ballots, and then when it comes to voting in person. And voter suppression is real. And we also have to look at people being registered to vote. So making sure you're currently registered to vote if you're interested in voting, and getting out there and being able to voice your political opinion. So yeah, thank you so much for that. And follow her, guys. She's awesome. She does great posts. So you will love to see her work up there. So make sure you follow her. All right. Yeah. Thank you. All right, Jamie, what about you? Tell us what's next for you.
Working hard for the tribe. I do a lot of living history, although many of our events have been canceled, but I'm working on some pre-contact clothing. I recently finished a right at contact outfit that would have been worn around 1600 in what is now the Southeast. And my book is still doing very well.
Oh, very nice.
Southeastern Woodland Designs. It is on Amazon. We also try and tell people buy it at our website, which is SenaysJewelry.com. And Senays is a well-known jewelry store in Pembroke, North Carolina. All proceeds from the book go to a nonprofit. And it's all about the Southeastern designs, all pre-contact. So people are always asking, what are designs outside of the Plains natives and the Southwest natives, which when you say Native America, just about everybody thinks of the war bonnet. So I wrote this book to let people know exactly what some designs would have been used in the Southeast woodlands. And I do a lot of writing, and when we can get back into normal, I'll be hopefully doing a lot of traveling across North America and Canada, doing presentations on specific living history. My unique is French and Indian War and the War of 1812, and Native Americans that portrayed and were used mainly on both sides in both of those wars. So I've turned that over to Dr. Richardson.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. For me, I'm busy all the time. I'm always doing something. I guess I'm a workaholic, so I usually work on Saturdays and sometimes on Sundays too. I probably shouldn't do that, but I'm working. I'm writing my book, working on that. When I feel like it's kind of hard. It takes a lot of determination to sit down and write, especially after you've already written a dissertation. And so it's kind of hard to do, but it takes a lot of discipline. So I've been doing that, and also I've been doing some research. I can't stay away from Ancestry.com and other websites that have a lot of information. So I'm actively doing that and just looking for more documents and more about my tribe and my people. And I'm also still working on the language. We were building a broad coalition of folks interested in revitalizing the Tulalosaponi language. We're working with a linguist in Arizona University named Corey Robinson. He's very interested in the language and really smart guy. And so I'm meeting with him about every 2 weeks to talk about the language and working on that and trying to revitalize it. And so sometimes I go in and out of it, but that's one of my first loves. I started doing that when I was around 14 years old. And so, yeah, those are some of the things, and kind of like Jamie, waiting on things to open up so we can go back traveling on the powwow circuit again with Stony Creek and just having a good time out there representing the people. So those are the main things that I'm doing, and just trying to deal like everyone else.
Thank you so much for sharing. And language is so important. I know I had shared with you before we went live about my family history with my family. For many of you may not know out there, my family is on my paternal side, Eastern Band Cherokee and West African from the Ivory Coast. So my grandmother is West African, and my paternal grandfather was Eastern Band Cherokee. So the beauty of that was I got to learn the language very young. And it was the first language I started learning. And then I started progressing into English. And, of course, because you're in public schools. And so all those things. But it was such a beautiful experience. And I grew up in Eastern North Carolina. So for any Eastern North Carolina people out there from Wilson, Nash, Halifax, or Warren, hello to you. Because all of my family is from those areas, especially on my mother's side. And language is very important to preserve. I think that is so awesome that you're doing that, Marty, because I think we need more people involved in things like that. Language is so important, and we're so much engrossed in English 24/7 that it's good to be able to get into your own native language and talk to people. So kudos to each of you for all the amazing work that you're doing. And I'm glad that people are able to be able to see you tonight on this platform. Everyone, for me, if you want to catch me, you can catch me over at Instagram at Black Indians NC or _ Kimberly M. Knight. On that page, you'll see mostly about me being a therapist and my journey in social work. And also, I'm a writer for Sheen and Essence magazine. So you'll see more of me over there for that piece. And also, similar to Jamie, I do public speaking at many universities for HIV awareness. So I have done a lot of tours across the country about doing things like that. So that's been great. And especially specifically in my state of North Carolina, I usually try to do 6 to 8 schools a year. But we, of course, with COVID, have not been able to do the conferences and World AIDS Day. I'm not sure how it will look this year, but usually HIV awareness has been a big philanthropy piece that I've worked on for many years. You can also catch me at the Lux Blog NC. Hello to any of my Lux Blog subscribers out there or team members. It's 12 of us on our team. The Lux Blog is a art and cultural lifestyle blog that is based out of North Carolina. And it's such a great piece. It will be 5 years in October. So shout out to our 25,603 subscribers. Hello to y'all that write me and email me and still subscribe to the blog, even though we've been a little quiet due to COVID. Because we normally, for everyone on the panel, my blog usually will go out to festivals and events and different interviews with people in the communities, businesses, celebrities when they come to town. So we've done many award shows and events, you name them, we've probably done them, especially in North Carolina. And so we pride ourselves in being able to cover everything from the Crystal Coast to the mountains. So hello, Lux Blog. You can find me over there. And also my personal page, Kimberly M. Knight. So for Black Indians NC, if you're new to watching episodes with us, this is episode 3. So you got 2 more. You need to go back and watch on YouTube on the Lux Blog NC channel. You can catch those 2 episodes. But what we're doing is doing a conversation circle series where we're having guest panelists come on and discuss different topics that many of you have written me about or messaged me about or called. So tonight was about tribal engagement, tribal enrollment, and we're so excited to be able to talk about those things. Those things went very well tonight. I want to say thank you to all of my guest panelists. Thank you so much. And we have some great comments from Facebook where they're saying, Lavelle Pierce Moore, hello. He says, hello, everyone. And then Amina is up here. She says, hi. She's Lumbee. So yeah, she says hello. So there's so many great comments up here. Many people that said hello. Sandra Hope said, hey, Marty. And so it's a lot of great comments. And Ree Harris. And Ree Harris, I would like to especially thank because she encouraged me to read your dissertation and I enjoyed reading it. It was great. It took me a little while, but it was great. And you did awesome. And congrats to you on your PhD. So yeah. Yeah. So any final words, anyone tonight before we close out?
No, I just want to say, Marty and Jamie, you guys are just really awesome. Like Marty, I've been following you for the language and, been practicing my language. And Jamie, I've been seeing you doing a lot of good things. And I'm just really proud to be on this panel with you guys because you guys are really doing it in Indian country. So I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you very much. And same to you and Mr. Richardson. Outstanding work both of you are doing. And good luck on your PhD. And of course, Marty is well known in the Halawasponi territory and across the country with Stony Creek, and hope to eventually get out there and hear you guys sing and dance to you and listen to more of your next book in your language that you've always done wonderful work for the Halawasponi. And just tell everybody to be careful and be safe, and Lord willing, hopefully we'll be at some event soon and can all come together as a wonderful, fantastic people. I use the term Native America. I've been doing that in my universities for years. I dropped the N and don't use Native American. So wishing everybody in Native America safety and Godspeed.
Thank you all so very much. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. And you can catch this on YouTube later on tonight. I will have it up there for those that weren't able to join on Facebook Live. And again, thank you so much.